Meeting will come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is celebrating success.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight I would like to recognize Mr. Chris Faulkner, who is here with us tonight. If he'll come on out.
Man behind the scenes.
Chris, doing what I do, I get the great opportunity to work with many departments across the POA. And Chris does the same thing. He's helped food and beverage out. He's helped out at kindergarten. He just recently got transferred to marketing and communications, doing an outstanding job there. And now he's even helping me while he's here doing this, get music out at kindergarten. We're going to start playing out there. But Chris does it with a sense of humor. He's fun to work with. Just does a fantastic job. So thank you, Chris, for all you do.
Get the disco light going.
All right, that's always fun. Next up is the approval of the minutes from the May 25th regular meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Jason?
Second.
Jeff the second. Any additions, corrections? Does anybody find anything wrong with them? In that case, we'll go for a vote. All those in favor? 9-0. Next is the June 15th, recently last week, work session. Do I have a motion for those? Jan?
Second.
Second by Jerry. Anything to be changed there? Good job. All those in favor? 9. Next up is the Joint Advisory Committee reports. First on is Recreation. Deborah?
Good evening. The Recreation Committee met on June the 12th. All amenities were reported to be in good condition with the following notes. Over at Metfield, it was recommended to repurpose the areas currently housing the shuffleboard courts. At Branchwood, there's a dead tree along the walking path, with the concern being a large limb over the walkway. At Loch Lomond, water is pooling along the third base line of the softball field. Over at Blowing Springs, the new events at the Gear Garden, Food Truck Friday, Family Saturday, and Jazz Sunday are incredibly well received by the community. Great job. At Tyree, and somehow that's slightly comical, someone ran over the no parking, no loading sign, and it is badly damaged. Lake Avalon Park and Beach, over 125 tons of white sand were brought in. That place looks beautiful. A ton of work went into that. Great job again. Reardon Complex and Tennis, the carpeting on the mini golf course around hole 15 is starting to come up, and there's some damage to the buckets at the beginning of the course. And at Tanyard, we had a report read to us that was written by Randy Ham, who is the trail volunteer leader. It outlined the amazing amount of work the volunteers have completed, their future plans, and the excellent working relationship and partnership they have with Rick Eccles. Under the staff reports, Tom reminded us that it's now time to begin thinking about and budgeting for 2024, and our committee recommendations will be due by the end of August. Rick informed us that the Lake Windsor drawdown will now start 2 weeks earlier than originally announced. It will start on October 23rd, as the city requested this to address the Chelsea culvert repair. His team removed no-wake buoys from the no-wake lakes because it was just kind of eye clutter. And the kids' fishing derby was extremely successful. There were at least 70 kids in attendance. From John, we heard that the gun range attendance in May was up 55% over last year. The Cancer Challenge had 120 trap shooters for the nighttime youth shoot. And classes now, though, are slowing a little, but that's due to the heat. And finally, from Joan, the Kids Triathlon is scheduled for Saturday, June 29th at Lake Avalon. They're expecting between 70 and 90 kids. Swim team has kicked off with 127 swimmers, and this is probably one of our lesser known, least talked about activities, but it's a pretty big deal. We have 2 swim meets out there. One takes place June 17th, and the next will be July 7th. Any questions, comments?
Where's the swimming at?
Over at Reardon. Our next committee meeting is July 10th at 4 in the boardroom. Thank you all.
Thank you.
The Lakes Committee report. Lakes Committee voted to approve lowering Lake Windsor beginning on October 16th. It's actually going to be 3 weeks early. This is because Chelsea Road has a lot of extensive damage to it, that culvert, and this will allow the city of Bella Vista to get in there early and to repair this. All the work has to be done before the asphalt plants close for the winter. They don't want to be halfway through the work and then have to stop it for months. All lakes except Lake Brittany have been given nourishment enhancement treatment during the week of June 5th. Additional treatment is still ongoing. Committee began discussing the 2024 budget recommendations. Final recommendations are due by August 31st. And that's the report for the Lakes Committee.
Thank you. For the Golf Committee, Ruth Hatcher.
Thank you. The golf meeting was Wednesday, June 14th. Keith Eames for the maintenance. Verification was at Scottsdale, June 22nd, 23rd, yesterday or today and tomorrow. Verification at Brittany, the 23rd and 24th. The collar repairs, the contract is scheduled for July 10th. Birksdale Kingswood Country Club Highlands will take repairs, will be 6 to 8 days duration, 2 days per course. So we ask you your patience. Golf Op has sent out the July schedule for the golf groups indicating these changes. Fairway sites is always an issue. Each course is different, being the grass, etc. Height of the grass is determined by the type of grass, how often the grass is mowed, and how many shotguns a course has, and the weather. So each and every course is treated differently. So when you play from one to the other, expect to see a little bit difference in height. Golf operations, Darrell Muldoon. May rounds report. May rounds ended 24,465, up 7,432 over last year. Year-to-date rounds are 66,848, up 17,494 over last year. The story for the year May report is simply another month of record-setting numbers. Great weather conditions impacted the rounds drastically for the month of June or May, and pro shop sales are over budget by 121%. Range buckets at the end of May were 8,940, up 3,003 over last year. Range bucket year to date, 31,000, up 9,700 over last year. It's a lot of range balls. Tournaments. Darrell took the tournament schedule for Alex Sanford. Junior camp is full. They had a great time. The kids, maybe 60 or so for July. They've still got a couple of openings if you'd like to be there. All in the Family registration is out there. July 23rd is the date. 4th of July tournament, Friends of the Highlands. The Highlands registration is online. And the All-Summers Tournament registration is online also, and that's this weekend, and we wish them well. Old business. The Golf for Charity Challenge was held yesterday. Great success. And we thank all the volunteers, and 5 of your board members volunteered, and I think everybody had a good time. Bella Vista Foundation is running a silent auction today, Friday and Saturday here at the Bella Vista Country Club. Committee thanked outgoing members Jeff Hendren, Sheila Hayward, and Mike Houston for their 3 years of dedication. Dave DeGraff was recommended to the POA board to continue under for another 3 years in the golf committee, and Brad Lawrence, Kimala Mullen, and Jim Estes' names will be recommended to the board tonight for your vote. 2024 budget will be discussed at the next meeting, which will be due at the end of August, and our next meeting is July 12th at 4 o'clock here in the boardroom. Any questions?
Thank you, Ruth. Exciting news. Next, the preliminary financial reports. Hopefully Beth has good news.
Very good news. I got it. Is this on? Yep. Oh, yeah. So this is the financial overview for May, and as always, the financial reports in this presentation and the detailed financials can be found on the website. So we'll start with the consolidated results for the month of May. Revenue consolidated is $3.3 million with $270,000 over budget. Cost of goods sold is $84,000 worse than budget, as would be expected with the increased revenue. Operating expenses is $41,000 better than budget. So EBITDA for May is a positive $506,000, which is $228,000 better than budget. Looking at year-to-date, the revenue is almost $15 million year-to-date with a $702,000 over budget. Cost of goods sold is $336,000 worse than budget. Operating expenses are $460,000 better than budget. And EBITDA year-to-date is $1.9 million with $826,000 over budget. So looking at the year-to-date EBITDA variances to budget by division, as Ruth kind of alluded to in her committee meeting, golf operations is doing really well. They have a 21% growth over last year in their greens fees and pro shop sales. Also, their labor is under budget so far. So they have $412,000 year-to-date better EBITDA than budget. General income is $176,000 better than budget due to primarily investment income and expense savings. Recreation's $131,000 better. That's expenses across the board is less than budget. And golf maintenance is $131,000 better than budget. And that is primarily all in labor. It's unfilled positions, but I talked to Keith and he says those positions have pretty much been filled in the last 30 days, plus they've been having some overtime, so we probably won't see that next month. Food and beverage is $73,000 better than budget, and they are experiencing a 29% growth in income from last year, so that's primarily in income. So I'm going to go down to the bottom. Is water is the worse than budget on EBITDA of $282,000, and we'll talk about water a little bit later in the slide. So looking for the month, revenue was $290,000 better than budget for POA only without water. Food sales were better than budget, and golf fees, as I'd mentioned, $195,000 for the month better than budget. Boat registrations were better than budget by 14. Membership transfer fees are less than budget by $37,000, and discounts were worse than budget, which is to be expected with the increased revenue. And income on investments was better than budget by $26,000. So you'll see that the revenue for the month is better than budget and better than the same time last year. Expenses were $31,000 better than budget for the month. This is salaries and benefits were better than budget by $77,000. Again, unfilled positions, that's likely to swing. HR's doing a great job of filling those positions. Bad debt expense was better than budget by $31,000. Common property maintenance was worse than budget by $11,000, and that's tree removal on common property. Mike tells me that we had a dry season last year, and that's contributing to that. On top of additional improved property is causing us to have more trees observed as needing cut down. Professional services were worse than budget by $33,000, and that's due to professional services related to the Trafico fire. And office equipment lease were worse than budget by $11,000, and we received in May a large usage, annual usage invoice that wasn't expected that hit that and caused that. EBITDA was better than budget for the month of $281,000 for the POA. So looking at year-to-date,
If I can make a comment about
Yeah.
common maintenance property, I've read and had several members comment to me.
it is.
Sorry, you're just a wall.
I've had several members and read several about how when they have an issue with trees on common property, that their response time has been outstanding when they call in. Like, I'm talking about sometimes same day response to get that taken care of. So just kind of, I know there's more of it, but it
Yeah.
seems like it's really being very proactive and reacted on very quickly.
Yeah, great comment. I think Doug and Mike are pair up on that and take care of that very well. So looking at year-to-date, the POA only performance, you can see those categories that are better than budget year-to-date. A lot of the same ones that you'll see in a minute. Salaries and benefits year-to-date is the biggest, $376,000. Worse than budget is $188,000 on COGS. Professional services and taxes. Professional services I just talked about. Taxes and permits. A lot of that is Tom's work with the city. And credit card fees, that's increased income, increased usage. And the intercompany interest expense is worse than budget because the rates are higher. So here's the POA year-to-date expenses by category and how they match up with actual budget and prior year. You'll see nearly all of them are better than budget, except for professional services, as I mentioned, credit card fees and taxes and permits, and the salaries and employee benefits are there in the corner, showing better than budget. So golf is having an incredible year, so we thought we'd highlight that by course a little bit. You'll notice that all of the courses are beating budget and prior year. Kingsdale is beating budget by $129,000 year-to-date. Country Club, $148,000 year-to-date. Metfield, $67,000. Highlands, $58,000. Scottsdale, $5,000. Tanyard, $9,000. So every single course is doing well. Moving to water, for the month of May, sales were better than budget for the month by $19,000, but new service connections and water capital buy-in fees were worse than budget. And expenses, cost of goods sold, worse than budget by $63,000. Salaries and benefits were better than budget by $10,000. Water distribution equipment was better than budget by $13,000. EBITDA was positive for water for May, but it was worse than budget by $53,000. And looking at the year-to-date, you'll see the categories there better than budget: salaries and benefits, service contracts, credit card process charges, bank charges, bad debts. Worse than budget. The meter installation supplies and the water distribution equipment, some of that is Charlie's has front-loaded some of those supplies. And also, he's having to fix some leaks, and that's contributing to that, and the maintenance repairs as well. And inflation and costs. The electric utility is also $12,000 worse than budget. So looking at the year-to-date expenses by category for water, there are several that are at or slightly above budget. The worst of those are maintenance and repairs and supplies, which for the same reasons I just talked about. Salaries and employee benefits were better than budget by $48,000.
Why do we think the credit card fees were so different there? Was that a change in the system?
When the sales are down, the credit card fees are, yeah. Cash, so between water and POA, total cash is 9.8 million in unreserved, 5 million for the POA unreserved, almost 3 million in water unreserved, and then we do have $1 million reserved back for water and 840,000 reserved back for the POA. There's the one pager. It goes through a lot of what I just went through, so I'm not going to read through all those departmental variances to budgets. The total POA EBITDA without water is 1.1 million over budget, and water is 282,000 worse than budget. And we owe, the POA owes the water department 2.1 million. And I think that's it. Any questions?
Thank you again for giving such a nice report.
Oh, you're welcome.
Sandy needs a visor.
Excuse me, the next item on the agenda is the open forum. Did we have anybody sign in? Nobody signed in. Did you want to speak?
I did.
Approach the microphone, identify yourself, and the street you live on.
Tell her about 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah, there's a clock over here for 3 minutes.
Okay. I don't know if it's on or not.
Should be.
Okay. Hi, my name is Barbara Beckstrom. Sorry, I didn't know I needed to sign in, or I would have. And I'll try to be brief. I live on the west side. I'm grateful to be in Bella Vista. Love it. I think the maintenance in the city is outrageous. But I have a concern, and my neighbors do as well, so I kind of feel like I'm speaking for several of us. There is, or was, a Loch Lomond sign that said Stony Kirk Boat Ramp, and it directed people down to the boat ramp, and it's gone suddenly. And a lot of us neighbors have noticed it. Believe it or not, it's a nice direction, and that's part of the beauty of the city. You guys have, the signage is so nice, and it kind of likens a national park, which makes it all the more quaint and neat. So to have it gone, we were all surprised. And not only doesn't guide people on where the boat ramp is anymore, it's also used actually as a landmark kind of where to turn and, you know, where things are. And so there's a lot of us that are really disappointed. We called to ask what happened, and I didn't get an answer back. Somebody else said that they heard it was old, and so it was taken out, and it was going to cost $5,000 to get a new sign put in, which sounds kind of very expensive. And I see under maintenance and repairs that we're better than budget. So, so I'm just kind of wondering, with all due respect, like how come it's not going back up? And then other neighbors have come up and said that ours isn't the only one that's gone. The Lake Avalon one's gone. They took it out, and it's not, they didn't put another one back. So I'm just kind of wondering what happened to it, and if it's going to be put back, and I hope it is.
Thank you. Tom?
So actually the information that you heard is accurate. So a lot of the old gray signs are decades old, and they're falling down on their own in many cases. And so we've been working with the city on trying to replace those. The challenge is that we have approximately 55 of the gray signs out there. And because of the city requirements on the size of signs and the fact that the signs have to have tear away bolts on them in case they were hit by a car, those signs, those little signs, we're estimating between $5,000 and $7,000 to replace them. And since we have 55 of them, 55 times 5 is a big number. So we're trying to work with the city to see if we can come up with some sort of alternative So as crazy as it sounds, yes, that's the issue. And so it's not just Stony Kirk, it's multiple other ones. Tyree we had to remove. Well, Tyree fell down on its own. So we have multiple locations, and you'd think from a logical point of view that you could go in, well, there was a sign there, just let's replace it with a similar inexpensive wood sign. No, we can't. The city will not allow us to do those. Those signs were installed before the city was founded, so it was under different rules. So I don't have a good answer for you right now, other than we're in a tough spot, and to replace all those signs at 5,000 times 55 signs is not a viable financial option.
No, and I would agree with you. However, it compels one to wonder where you're getting your bids from on contract for a $5,000 sign or repair.
We've gone to multiple locations, and as I indicated, the requirements that are placed upon us by the city are what drive up the cost.
Well, I would hope that the POA would represent us in that manner, and it'd be nice if there was some alternative. I'm sure if it was the Highlands Pub.
Okay, time. Sorry.
Okay.
We appreciate your concern, and
Yeah,
we don't like it either.
Yeah, I'll stick up for it and say that I do think that it's time for us to put on a creative hat and try to find a solution that could possibly happen to where we could take existing signage like stop and street signs and also put a secondary marker on them or something to kind of,
At least even temporarily
Yeah.
until your situation.
yeah, I think a creative solution could be found.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, the next item, the budget calendar, we've talked about this. It's very similar to previous years. And as yet in the meeting, we haven't had any problems with the calendar. So I guess we go ahead and make a motion to approve it.
It's on page 68 of your board packet.
It's right after the financials. Jackie,
I make the motion approving the budget calendar for 2024.
thank you.
Second.
Second by JB. Is there any concern? Do we have a problem or question with it?
I guess my only concern would be some of the numbers that we saw today in terms of like the common maintenance stuff. Is it really earmarked enough for what we see with now 600 plus new home permits every year, more encroachment from common property getting into danger zone? There's some of the numbers that we see reflected here by mid-year taken into account for what we're budgeting for 2024. That'd be my only thing. I know that's a deeper exercise. I mean, I didn't know we have variances and we can kind of make adjustments on the fly, but
Yeah.
I would hope we would have taken some of this recent data now that we're at this moment and inserted into this.
Right, by the time the numbers get before us, we'll be much deeper into the year, and we'll see how well the tendencies continue. They either will or they won't, and I'm sure that the guys doing the budget will take that into account. So-
And Dave, I think this calendar reflects a change that was made so that we could be more on top of and be more current with this schedule, so that we have better data, more current data, so we're not forecasting as much.
Right.
So I think it's a help with that a little bit, Mike.
Yeah. So, okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving that calendar? All approve. Next item is the proposed improvements for the Gear Garden.
This is on page 70 of your board packet. We went over this in more detail at the work session. I can go. I still have the presentation up on the computer if you want me to go through the whole thing, but it hasn't changed. What is occurring is we're doing very well at the Gear Garden, and so as a result of that success, we're running out of kegs on a consistent basis. You're not allowed to move kegs from one location to another. It's against state law. And so we're trying to come up with a solution that would allow us to store more kegs on site. Also, we have several additional, or the final concrete benches that are literally 40 to 50 years old and are in horrible shape and need to be replaced. So we figured if we're going to do some concrete work to create a storage area, we might as well do concrete work to get rid of the remaining picnic benches and so forth. So
would you mind doing a Cliff Notes version? I think it'd be good for
Absolutely.
the membership. More people are in tune to the general session than the previous session.
You mean those benches aren't like Fenway seats? I mean, those are incredible. People don't want those. They could be a part of the silent auction over here. They kind of help,
we can deliver them to your house. I picked the wrong presentation. How am I doing?
They help exfoliate you. You don't even realize it.
They will exfoliate you.
So here's a picture of the opening weekend. It was actually much busier than this for most of the day, at least when I got there. And here's how we're sitting right now. The first year, now keep in mind we didn't open until July the first year, but we brought in $51,000 in revenue. Second year, we brought in just under 100, and right now we're projected to do just under 200,000. So we're doubling, which is great. And we sold 800 Pioneer Cups in the first weekend alone, and that brings them coming back over and over and over again, which is outstanding. Plus, we've been doing very well with regards to the merchandise. Leslie just does an outstanding job getting us merchandise to sell. So we're asking for additional storage for the kegs, merchandise and supplies. We're not going to go into that unit. We're not going to use that as a sales location. It's just storage. We have a location where we can kind of tuck it away and hide it, but also get to it quickly when we need additional product. Replacing the final benches, which are 50 plus years old. So we'd get a 10-foot container, and we would have refrigeration units inside the container. And we would add siding and trim work so that it would match the existing building. We would replace the benches and the concrete pads. On here, we had mentioned that we would have beer taps on the outside of it. We are not going to have that. After all, the city did not want us to have that. It did not conform with one of their ordinances, so that was stricken. But we're asking for $32,000, which includes a 10% contingency.
Okay, can I have a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion approving the expenditure of $32,000, which includes 10% contingency for the improvements requested for the Gear Garden.
Thank you. A second? Jan Hagan? Okay, is there any discussion?
I just have one thing. I know we've talked about the food trucks that are coming, and I keep thinking to myself, the Blowing Springs area is a great opportunity for some upgraded vending opportunities. I would urge our hospitality group to look into some higher end vending machines, possibly ones that have heated and cooled items. It seems like there's a pretty good trapped population there of people that would consistently look to activate those vending machines, and vending machines can also offer swag in them too, so we could have things that are not just perishable in there and still find a way to, for when the check-in station is closed and people still want to pick up merch, that vending machine could also dual as that. So I hope they can look into that.
Something to look into. Jeff?
Tom, I just had to, did I understand you correctly, we're no longer going to be able to sell from that new storage container like we were hoping to, or?
Yeah, so the original idea was the storage container, we would not sell from the interior, but we thought that a couple times a year when it's extremely busy, we would have taps on the outside and we can serve from those. Unfortunately, they're not, the city won't allow us to do that. So we can still have Bentonville Brewing come out with their truck, their van, and they have taps on the outside, so we're just gonna have to use that. It was an extra nicety, but the city said no.
Oh, I agree, we still need the room for the kegs. It's kind of disappointing that we can't get everything we want.
Yeah, and why is Bentonville Brewing allowed to do it? Because they have an off-site catering license? And what would prohibit us from applying for the same
To move kegs, you mean?
criteria that they have, so we could eliminate this third-party vendor who gets so much extra cheddar from it?
Honestly, I didn't get into, they said no, and I just took no. I didn't actually ask for the logic behind it. I just was like, okay, that's not acceptable. So we might be able to revisit it. And that was that was a side nicety. The critical issue is having the kegs on site in a cold storage. That's 99% of the request. The taps on the outside is really, really small. So.
I wonder if it was the taps on the outside, or was it that location, since it's going to be off to the side? Is that area over there considered part of the Gear Garden or not?
It's fenced in. It is part of the Gear Garden. That wasn't it. I can look into it and get back to you guys, but I honestly didn't ask the question. I accepted the word no.
Well, I think if I understood you, Mike, is it's the moving of the kegs where Bella Vista Brewery, almost there, Bentonville Brewery could move kegs and we couldn't. It's got to be, it has to do with the licensing that we have compared to what
and
permits.
This may be less Bella Vista and more ABC.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Okay. Call for the vote. All those in favor of the proposal? 9. Next item is the nomination of a volunteer to the election committee, namely Ann Dahlke.
This is on page 71 of your board packet.
Ann has done a lot of things for the POA over the years. I believe she was on the election committee at one point.
She was previously on the committee, and she's volunteering out. She's been volunteering a lot of hours for the Golf for Charity event. So,
I move that we accept the nomination of Ann Dahlke to serve on the elections committee.
Thank you, Jeff.
Second.
JB, second. I have to ask, any objections? All those in favor?
Go and go.
Go ahead. Bella Vista is a great place for volunteers. We got so many. Next up is nominations for the golf committee. Ruth referred to that earlier. They have referred to us the names of James Estes, Brad Lawrence, and Kimala Mullen. So one at a time, could we have a motion? Jackie?
Sure. I make a motion for nominate James Estes to the golf committee.
Thank you. A second on that? Jason. Okay, was there any questions about James' candidacy? All those in favor? Thank you. 9. Next up, who wants to do Brad Lawrence?
I'll do Brad.
Jason.
I make a motion affirming the nomination of Mr. Brad Lawrence to the golf committee.
Thank you. Jerry, second. Any questions about Brad? All those in favor? Thank you. 9. Next up, Kimala Mullen.
I want to nominate, I make a motion affirming the nomination of Kimala Mullen to the golf committee.
Thank you. And Jeff seconds that one. Any questions about Kimala? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. Thank you very much. 9. Okay. The returning member is Dave DeGraff. He's consented for another term. So can I have a motion for Dave?
Yeah, I'll make a motion affirming the nomination of Dave DeGraff to the golf committee.
Thank you. Sandy seconds that. Any questions there? All those in favor? Thank you very much. Next up, we get to policies. 309, the dock and boathouse. This is something we've been working on with the city and the Townhouse Association trying to get all three entities in agreement, and they have been cooperating very well. We have before us the final version for a second of 2 required readings.
Earlier this week on Monday, I attended the City Council work session, and we talked about the POA adopting policy 3.09, or at least the changes to that policy, and then the city confirming their decision to make a modification to one of their ordinances. And so it appears that both, all 4 entities, the city, the POA, ACC, and the Townhouse Association are all on the same page with regards to this. So we're going to be making this change, assuming the board votes in favor of it, and the city will make their change. And so it's really everybody working together.
It's amazing. Everybody's working together. It's great. Okay, can we have a motion for 3.09? Jan?
I make a motion to approve the suggested changes to policy 3.09, dock and boathouse. This is the second reading of 2 required readings.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Jerry. Have any questions popped up about this? No questions. We can move to the vote then. All in favor? It's now a policy. Can I have a motion for policy, a new policy, 10.02?
I move to approve the brand new policy 10.02, definition of improved. This is the second reading of 2 required readings.
Thank you, Jeff. Sandy is second on that one. Any questions? Being a new policy,
I just have a general question about both of these. When will they be effective?
tomorrow,
So it's, okay.
Second reading.
in a matter of seconds.
Actually, yeah.
Soon as Doug can get back to his office.
We don't have to do that state thing. All those in favor?
Well, sorry, real quick, for the membership at home, we do this every time we do these policies, but we've beat these up. And nothing has changed the first time we went to it, so that's why there's not a lot of discussion on these policies.
Yeah. Maybe we're getting better at it.
JP's.
All those in favor? That's 9-0. That brings us to the end of the agenda and brings us to the announcements portion. The Recreation JAC meeting, as Deborah said earlier, is at July 10th, 4 p.m. here in the boardroom. The Lakes JAC meeting is Wednesday the 12th at 2 p.m., followed by the Golf JAC meeting at 4 p.m. here in the boardroom. Rules and Regulations will meet the next day, Thursday the 13th at 1:30 p.m. here in the boardroom. The Board of Directors GM meeting, which is a closed meeting, will be following that at 2:30 p.m. here in the boardroom. The next work session for July will be on the 20th at 9 a.m. here in the boardroom. And the regular session for the month of July will be on the 27th at 6 p.m. here in the boardroom. With that, we have reached the end of our agenda. Did anybody have anything else that they wanted to put forward? In that case, meeting will be adjourned. Thank you very much.